Joining us live now is Liberal MP Dave Sharma. Dave, good to see you again. Now, just last week, you said you weren't expecting a trade rift with France because our interests are too broad. Do you still feel that way?
I do, Peter. I mean, look, I'm a pragmatist about these things, and nations trade and negotiating conclude free trade agreements because it's in their mutual interest to do so, not because it's a favour of one country to another. The EU is a bloc of 27 countries. France is one of those countries. And we've had negotiations with the EU for an FTA because there's a lot of interest in reducing the trade barriers between our two big trading blocs. And those interests have not changed. I can understand that France is upset and disappointed at the decision regarding the nuclear submarines, but it's a completely different lane and a completely different set of issues to the FTA. So, look, we'll wait and see where it goes. But obviously, Australia remains interested in our relationship with France, but also our broader relationship with Europe, and we're keen trade liberalisers want to bring down those trade barriers.
I mean, you can't exactly say that the free trade talks with the EU is moving very quickly, can you?
Well, look, they've been underway for a few years now. I think 3 years. These do happen slowly with the EU because the EU has to reach a negotiating position after its own internal negotiations with 27 member states. So it takes a while. The Canadian one, for instance, which started well before ours, is still in progress, I understand. So, look, it's not going to happen quickly, and we never expected it to either.
Do you think it was an overreaction on France's part to remove its ambassador for consultation, is what it says?
Look, I don't want to characterise what they've done. Obviously, they're free to make their own decisions. I just say from Australia's perspective, we regret any offence and disappointment caused, and we remain very keen to have a forward-looking, productive and constructive relationship with France. I expect, look, they'll recall their ambassador for consultations, as is the way with these things. They'll speak to him, they'll seek his views about the way ahead, and, I have no doubt that he'll return to Australia within the next, several weeks or months.
Did we stab them in the back, Dave?
No, I don't think so, Peter. And I think it's unfair for people to put those characterisations on this. This was a commercial arrangement which had built into it a number of gateways and exit ramps, as you'd expect for any contract this size. I mean, this is a contract that was going to cost us about 5% of GDP or thereabouts, It's a massive contract, 3 times bigger than our Joint Strike Fighter project. So, of course, Australia will need to take and look very closely at the pathway that we're taking. And this is why we had exit ramps and gateways built into this contract to allow us to do these things. So it's understandable that, France is disappointed and Naval Group is disappointed, but we haven't done anything other than what we're contractually entitled to do under the terms of a commercial arrangement. And, that disappointment is understandable, but to accuse us of anything else, such as, bad faith, I think is not correct, and it's not a fair characterisation.
What does this mean for the alliance now, Dave, and what does it mean for the West's China strategy?
Well, look, I think it means for our alliance with the United States is obviously already strong, and this will be another step in it. Likewise with the United Kingdom and our comprehensive partnership. But more broadly, I mean, when we talk about our commitment to the liberal rules-based order, the big guarantors and upholders of that, if you like, are Western Europe and the European Union, countries like Japan and Korea and Australia in Indo-Pacific and India as well, and then United States, Canada and North America. So look, this has obviously caused some tensions in that whole constellation of relationships, but it's important, I think, that we move on from them in due course. It's natural enough for people to want to blow off some steam about them. But ultimately, the things that bring us all together are a shared commitment to the liberal rules-based order, peace and prosperity around the world, and an open and free trading system and the sovereign equality of nations. And none of those things has changed. Our values, our interests have not changed as a result of this.
When it comes to China, though, do you believe if France can't trust us, given what's happened, can we then rely on them in the Indo-Pacific? And as you know, it's important for France too because they've got such a large footprint in the Indo-Pacific.
They do. Look, they've got their own sovereign interests in the Indo-Pacific because they've got territories like New Caledonia and Tahiti and others. And that means that they have an interest in stability and the rules-based order and freedom of navigation and all these sorts of things that we also have an interest in. So the reason we cooperate with them in the Indo-Pacific is because we share interests and we share values, and that has not, those underpinnings have not changed. So, look, I'm a relatively unsentimental sort of person when it comes to these things. Nations interact and deal with one another because it's in their interest to do so. Not out of any deep-seated affection or love for one another. That can be part of the backdrop of a relationship, but nations deal with each other because they have interests. And as I can't remember the British statesman who once said this, but nations don't have permanent friends; they have permanent interests, and I think that's very much my view of this as well.
Okay, hopefully that increase tariffs on wine, Dave, because that'd be a real bummer. All right, good to chat.
On our wine or their wine?
On their wine, yeah, exactly. Dave, good to chat. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for your time.